What is up, as a figure hunter, and this is the first review in a three-part series for the Apple Watch Ultra versus the new Garmin Epix Pro 51mm, which is surprisingly the same weight and has a lot of similar hardware specs. So there's going to be three parts to this review. The first part is today, and that is the out-of-box comparison review, because I really want to look at the stronger contrast or stark differences from what you get out of the box with each of these devices, the Apple Watch Ultra versus the Garmin Epix Pro 51mm, and talk about why those differences are significant or important. Number two, at some point, we're going to do a full in-depth heart rate analysis review between the Apple Watch Ultra and the new heart rate sensor, the Elevate 5.0, and the Garmin Epix Pro 51mm, testing it across a bunch of modalities of fitness and sports to see how they differ in accuracy. The Apple Watch Ultra is sort of regarded as the best and most accurate and has continued to prove that up to this review. And then three, we're going to do a comprehensive review taking into account every watch app under the sun for trying to replicate what is missing out of the box versus the Garmin platform and operating system. So comprehensive app involvement overview review. So if you have favorite apps for tracking your wellness, for tracking your training, for tracking your life, please let me know what they are in the comments down below. There'll be timestamps down below as well. So the first thing we're going to do is just look at the hardware comparison and some of the specs with the watch. Then we're going to talk about wellness features out of the box. All these things are just like what you would get if you just put the watch on your arm and went about your day. And then third, we're going to talk about fitness and training features out of the box and what the stark differences are. So let's dive into the hardware. All right, so out of the box, these actually have a lot of similarities when it comes to just simple specs. They both have sapphire glass. They both have titanium. Surprisingly, they are both the same weight. I mean, the Apple Watch Ultra is actually the heavier watch at 61.3 grams versus the Garmin Epix Pro 51mm at 60 grams. They both have large, beautiful screens. The Apple Watch Ultra is going to be brighter and clearer at 2,000 nits versus about 1,000 on the Garmin Epix Pro. And actually, the Apple Watch is going to have better resolution. So it's got better pixels per square inch than the Garmin. It's actually really kind of close there. But if you were to do some math, it's got a little bit more felt pixels on the actual screen itself. And it's got about 17% more just pure screen size, just the square millimeters of the screens, one versus the other, regardless of whether it's square or round. You know, the GPS is both dual band, so the Apple Watch Ultra and the Garmin Epix Pro 51mm have dual band GPS, but Garmin wins the cake here because it's got a superior design in the sense that it has what they call Sat IQ, which can bounce from one GPS to using two at the same time to conserve battery life, depending on the difficulty of connecting with satellites. They both have heart rate sensors. So on the back, the heart rate sensor, they both track pulse ox. The Apple Watch has definitely been held to be the best in previous generations, the best at tracking the most rigorous workouts, and we're going to continue to test that. But Garmin has their new Epix Elevate 5.0, or the Pro Series Elevate 5.0 heart rate sensor, which has proven in a standalone test to be much more accurate than Garmin heart rate sensors of the past. The Apple Watch does something different when it comes to sensors, is it tracks your body temperature, and which helps for nightly information. That third-party apps could use that for evaluating your health and wellness. And it has ECG support. But on the flip side, Garmin has all the hardware built in to do ECG. It's just a matter, I guess, if they get that released and if it's important to have to you right now. So a big primary difference between the two is the battery life. Obviously, that's common knowledge. The Apple Watch Ultra is better than any other Apple Watch before at about 2.5 days if you have always on display. But with always on display on the Garmin Epix Pro 51mm, I'm getting about 12 days. So that's a 600% increase. That is a huge difference. At 2.5 days, that sounds good, but subconsciously, I still find myself feeling tethered to a charger, fearful that it's not going to charge, wondering if I have to use the fast charger because I don't, so it's still in the realm of too short to really forget about it and need to, have it in your subconscious. Versus 12 days, you just charge at some point in the next week and a half and you'll be okay, is basically taking it out of your mental realm. And then last is the price. The Apple Watch Ultra is $830 or $800, and the Epix is $1,100 at the Sapphire Titanium 51mm. But what we'll see in the future reviews is that in order to get somewhat competitive on the Apple Watch side on some of the health and wellness and fitness and training, is you have to buy a bunch of apps, and it's just sort of, it's going to continue to amass more expense over time. We're not going to calculate it, but it is definitely somewhat competitive. I would say it's in the definitely $950 to $1,000 range if you want to have a competitive experience. So with that, we're going to look at how these differ and how they're similar as watches, just what their capabilities are as a smartwatch experience. Then we'll look at wellness. Then we'll look at workouts and training. Looking at the Apple Watch Ultra as a smartwatch, you have calls, just flat out has cellular. You have Siri, which Siri opens the door for a million different capabilities. You can calculate, multiplication. You can calculate all sorts of unique features. You can set alarms. You can put reminders on your tasks. You can, make your calls. You can create lists. You have, obviously, you can respond to text messages. You can do a million different things because of the capability of how it sort of syncs in line with the iPhone itself as one brain. It gives you driving turn-by-turn directions. It's a much better interactive. And to speak specifically to the iOS 10 update, it's cleaned up some of the things that were my biggest gripes, like the sea of apps and then no real basic widget functions. They've added widgets. They've made the sea of apps cleaner and more functional, and they've made the use of the buttons specifically on the Apple Watch Ultra just more functional. Everything just works better. So it is the clear winner when it comes to watch capabilities. I would say it also is a clear winner when it comes to the beauty of the screen. The hair extra pixel per square inch or per inch density of the Apple Watch, as well as the screen design and the 2000 nits of brightness, makes it just crisper and clearer. It's just, everything is beautiful. And this is coming from an Apple Series 7 pre-testing. So like before I retested this Apple Watch, I was using the Series 7, and I just think this is a different experience. This is a clear, more beautiful experience in my opinion. And so if you are a Series 8 or Series 7 or previous generation Apple Watch user, it's definitely worth the upgrade for that. Next, let's talk about where the divergence really starts to occur, and that's on the wellness and the training. But specifically, just starting with the wellness, just out of the box, when it comes to wellness, there's two things that really are worthwhile. So there's just like hardcore sort of physiological data, and then there's recommendations and guidance based on that data. And I really feel like the Apple Watch Ultra definitely lacks on the guidance and recommendations out of the box. And it actually lacks on a significant piece of physiological data, and that's heart rate variability. I would say, in simple terms, out of the box, the Apple Watch Ultra does not natively track heart rate variability. It doesn't claim to have like a full tracking of heart rate variability. It by itself will track heart rate variability every 2 or 3 hours. And that's not nearly enough to actually get any kind of analysis from it. If you cheat and say you have an AFib issue and say that you have a doctor just prescribed AFib issue, it'll track it more, but Apple doesn't stand behind those metrics. And if you look at a nighttime of metrics, then it's only every 15 minutes. And those metrics actually can have super erroneous, like 300% of the average baseline, erroneous measures to it. And that is an issue. And so in its simple terms, it doesn't track heart rate variability. You can do a breathing exercise and it'll take a heart rate variability measurement, but natively, if you just wear the watch and go about your life, it doesn't have any useful heart rate variability. And heart rate variability has now become a cornerstone for evaluating your recovery, evaluating like how your wellness is going, like your sleep is regenerating. Secondly, it's been well known that the Apple Watch is one of the more accurate when assessing sleep stages, but it doesn't provide any native recommendations based on those sleep stages. It can tell you your trends of if you're sleeping more or less in super sort of bland format. But in the wellness category, out of the box, natively, the Apple Watch Ultra does very, very little compared to all of the other watches not on the market today versus not just the Garmin Epix. Now we look at the Garmin Epix Pro. The Garmin Epix Pro offers full nightly analysis when it comes to heart rate variability, as well as it takes into account heart rate variability throughout 24/7 and converts it to a stress score to evaluate your internal reserves, what they call body battery. That is a huge stark difference between these two devices. One does it like all the time, looking to see how you're doing on your wellness and really in depth at night to see how your recovery is going from the workouts and the training previous to that, and how your body's responding to sickness, things like that. All that ties into heart rate variability, and that's been very physiologically well accepted. In addition, Garmin takes not just the sleep stages, even if they got the sleep stages wrong, and I know that they're continually evolving their accuracy, as all these watches are. It's still providing a sleep score, which is, again, guidance and recommendation. And that sleep score is based on 6 variables across a number of different spectrums to tell you what it's looking like is happening into your body. When you get sick, it is definitively apparent on the Garmin device. When you get sick, it doesn't tell you anything on the Apple Watch Ultra. That's a huge difference. That it is really not giving you any direction unless you add all those third-party apps, and we're going to do a separate review for that. But natively, the Garmin is analyzing your sleep in multiple different physiological spectrums. It's got daily, all-day body battery, which is heart rate variability converted to stress and how it is estimated to have affected you, and then nightly HRV to determine your direction. And then on top of that, they have this training readiness, which takes into account your workout rigors and your workout history, as well as all these physiological metrics. It's not even close or competitive. And then we have the workouts, like the training and the workout aspects. The Apple Watch Ultra will give you basic workout training. Like, it'll take you on a run, it'll, track your GPS. It'll take you on a bike ride, it'll track your GPS. You can now add in like a couple of cycling sensors, which I think is a fraction of the needed improvement when it comes to sensor connection for cyclists. I'm not a cyclist, but it is a fraction of the different sensors that you really should be connecting to provide a full suite. It'll take your VO2 max just for running or just for cycling, but it's just super basic, plain vanilla, no rigor analysis. Again, just out of the box. That's all we're talking about. And then you have the Garmin, which out of the box has has like 150 sport profiles, but it's got 50 or some large amount of customized specialty sport profiles, or sport profiles that have specialty data analytics built into them all across the workouts, whether it's mountain biking, skiing, like super detailed analytics, how, the number of runs you did, the speed per run, your time per run, all that stuff. Your surfing, trail run, even with the trail run VO2 max, paddleboarding, hunting, base jumping. There's videos for if you wanted to, out of the box, it'll give you a yoga workout and it'll show you the movements. Out of the box, it'll give you like a strength building workout and show you the movements. It has all this stuff, like little videos of somebody doing these movements. It has training plans out of the box. If you wanted to get ready for a 5K or a 10K or a half marathon or a marathon, it'll build a training plan for you and take into some of these account other physiological metrics. Completely, different. When it comes to mapping, as it relates to workouts, you have true entire world maps, fully routable. You can find a trailhead, you can hike, it'll guide you back to your start if you want to go, and guide you back by an alternate method. It'll even help you track to the nearest Starbucks. So the mapping, even with the iOS 10 update in the Apple Watch Ultra, not in any way the same. Not the same. They could evolve it, and they may evolve it. You can take a snapshot of this area of the world and get some trailhead, but it's just not the same. And then on the analysis side, with the Garmin, Apple Watch has nothing. I mean, it'll tell you your steps like every other watch that's on the planet. This is out of the box. But Garmin will give you training load, aerobic and anaerobic training effect, training status, just to see how you're doing over a long period of time. It writes your training plans. It'll tell you how much hydration you lost in a workout, estimated need to be replenished. So there's just a stark difference. And so that leads us to the summary. So out of the box, what do each natively provide? The Apple Watch provides a beautiful screen with a beautiful smartwatch, experience. It provides, also, like connected to Siri and like artificial intelligence, a phone on your wrist, and a smooth and easy sort of functional, now updated interaction with the watch itself at a shortened battery life of 2.5 days. Very limited on the workouts, very, completely, in my opinion, absent of wellness. The Garmin, on the other hand, has the limitations on the smartwatch capabilities. There's no comparison, but I mean, there's no comparison to that. But when it comes to wellness and recovery and training and health and fitness and sports and different outdoor activities, and I mean, there's no comparison out of the box. And that's what we're going to test on the third-party app, is to see if you can sort of build, piece together, like Frankenstein's monster. But there's no comparison. Garmin is just so in-depth and so specific and so elaborate in those things. So, I have really grown to love the Apple Watch Ultra appearance and the feel of interacting with it, and the big pretty screen. And the Epix is a big pretty screen in itself, but it's sort of like just a computer on your wrist that didn't come pre-installed with anything that would apply to training or workouts, or, in my opinion, wellness and health life. So that's a pretty big thing. It's ironic because Apple reminds me of like a Windows computer, like a really powerful Windows XP computer. It has all the internal hardware, but it can't do anything on its own out of the box. You got to go install Photoshop. You got to, install your games. You got to install some form of like video editing software. You got to install, Microsoft Office to make it functional. It's totally not functional on its own in a full-fledged life. So with that, we're going to dive into the rest of the testing, the rest of the reviews. This is the initial out-of-the-box review for the Apple Watch Ultra and the Garmin Epix Pro 51mm. It's the Figure Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.